Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is not just news, it's a warning, a wake-up call, and a glimpse into a future no country ever wants to face. Iran is now standing on the edge of a humanitarian disaster that experts say could become one of the worst water collapses in modern history. For millions of people, especially inside Tehran, the water crisis is no longer a slow emergency. It has become a fast, brutal, and unstoppable collapse, pushing entire cities toward evacuation. And in today's video, we break down the full truth behind why Iran's water is disappearing, how the crisis became uncontrollable, why Zero Day has arrived earlier than expected, and what this means for millions of families who may soon be forced to leave the capital. So sit tight and listen closely, because what you're about to hear is the inside reality that the world needs to understand. For years, Iran lived under the illusion that its water problems were temporary. Every summer, when taps ran dry, authorities blamed short rainfall, climate change, or temporary shortages. But what was happening under the surface was far more dangerous. Iran was losing water faster than it could replace it. The groundwater that once fed the cities, farms, and villages for centuries was being sucked out like the last air in a collapsing balloon. Today, almost 80% of Iran's groundwater reserves are gone permanently. They are not coming back in our lifetime, not in the next century, not even with new dams or rainfall. When experts say water ends, they mean the aquifers have collapsed, and no technology exists to refill them. Tehran, the beating heart of Iran, is now at the center of this disaster. 10 million people depend on a system that was never designed to support such a huge population with such little water. The city's old pipelines leak more water than some countries consume. Entire reservoirs have dropped to historic lows. The Karaj Dam, once a symbol of Iran's engineering power, has lost most of its usable water. And now, engineers working inside the capital admit privately that the system is days away from irreversible shutdowns if the current consumption continues. This is what Zero Day looks like, not a dramatic explosion, not a sudden catastrophe, but a slow, brutal, and mathematically unstoppable collapse. But how did Iran reach this point? Part of the answer lies in climate change. Over the past 30 years, Iran has warmed twice as fast as the global average. Rainfall has decreased sharply, snowpack has melted earlier, and the natural water cycle that sustained life in Iran for centuries has weakened. The hot, dry winds blowing across the country now pull water from soil before plants can even use it. Rivers once fed by melting snow now run empty by midsummer. Nature has changed, and Iran's water infrastructure never adapted. But climate change is only one part of the story. The larger part is mismanagement. Massive dams built without long-term planning dried up rivers. Over-irrigation of crops drained aquifers. Millions of illegal wells were dug across the country. Fields that were supposed to grow low-water crops like wheat and barley were instead used for rice, fruits, and water-intensive farming. For years, the warning signs were ignored. When activists and scientists spoke up, they were silenced, fired, or banned from working. Meanwhile, water continued disappearing, and the problem grew beyond control. Today, Iran is facing a future that looks more like a survival test than a normal crisis. In many towns, water trucks have become the new lifeline. Families wait in long lines with plastic containers. Children walk kilometers under the burning sun for a few liters of water. In cities like Isfahan, Yazd, Shiraz, and Kerman, water cuts last hours, sometimes entire days. In some villages, people have not had running water for months. The ground has cracked, rivers have turned to dust, and lakes like Lake Urmia have almost vanished. What used to be beautiful blue waters are now salt deserts reflecting the sun like a mirror of death. In Tehran, the situation is even worse than officials admit. Thousands of residents have already begun leaving the city quietly. They cannot wait for the government to announce evacuation orders because they know that once the taps go dry, the capital becomes unlivable. Schools, hospitals, banks, transportation systems, everything depends on water. Without it, a city of 10 million cannot survive more than a few days. Experts warn that if Tehran reaches full water shutdown, chaos will erupt. Water riots, migration waves, disease outbreaks, and a total breakdown of daily life are all possibilities. We are not talking about a movie scenario. We're talking about a real crisis happening right now. The fear is that the government will wait too long to admit the truth, and by the time evacuation is officially announced, it will be too late to move millions safely. Water collapse does not wait. It does not negotiate. When it reaches the tipping point, everything falls apart quickly. Inside Iran, people are scared. Many feel betrayed. They say their leaders failed to protect their future. Families talk about leaving the country entirely. Parents worry about their children growing up in a land where water is becoming more precious than gold. Farmers who once fed the nation now stand in their fields watching dry soil crumble through their fingers. In some places, entire communities are abandoning agriculture completely because irrigation is impossible. The land is dying, and people are being forced to choose between staying in their homes or fleeing to survive. The collapse of water doesn't just affect daily life. It affects the economy. Industries need water to function. Power plants need water to cool turbines. Factories need water to produce goods. Everything depends on it. And as water disappears, businesses close, unemployment rises, and the economic pressure on families grows heavier. When a country runs out of water, everything else collapses like falling dominoes. But there is a deeper psychological toll. Water is not just a resource. It is the foundation of life, identity, culture, and stability. Iran's history, from ancient Persia to modern times, has always been shaped by the power of water. Engineers and kings once built complex, Qanat systems, underground channels that carried water across deserts for thousands of years. These ancient systems were models of sustainability. They preserved resources. They respected nature. They balanced consumption with regeneration. But in the modern era, those systems were abandoned for faster, more destructive methods. Now many Iranians see the crisis as a painful reminder that nature always takes revenge when mismanaged. As zero-day approaches, many global observers warn that Iran could face one of the largest climate-driven migrations in modern history. Millions could be forced to move, not because of war, but because their cities become unsustainable. Imagine highways filled with families carrying their belongings, searching for towns with more water. Imagine borders receiving waves of thirsty, exhausted people looking for a place to live. Imagine hospitals overwhelmed, schools closing, and supermarkets struggling to provide essentials. This is not speculation. It's a scenario experts believe could happen within years if drastic changes are not made. But the biggest question is there still time to save Iran from total collapse? The answer is complicated. Iran can slow the crisis, manage remaining water more efficiently, implement strict conservation rules, modernize agriculture, repair pipelines, and reduce water-intensive industries. These steps could buy time, but can the water fully return? No, not in decades. The damage is largely irreversible. Iran is not facing a temporary crisis, it's facing a new reality. However, hope still exists. Countries like Israel, Saudi Arabia, and even parts of Africa have turned severe water scarcities into advanced systems of recycling, desalination, and efficient farming. Iran could follow this path, but doing so requires massive investment, political will, transparency, and cooperation with international partners. Things Iran has struggled with due to sanctions and internal politics. This brings us back to the most important point: the people. Iranian families are strong. They are resilient. They have survived wars, sanctions, and hardships. But water collapse is unlike any crisis they have faced. You can rebuild a building destroyed by war. You can restart an economy after sanctions. But once water runs out, you cannot rebuild it. For millions of Iranians, the fear is not about today. It's about tomorrow. Now the world watches as Iran stands on the edge of a humanitarian cliff. Will leaders act in time, or will they allow the crisis to grow until evacuation becomes the only option? Will the future bring stability, or will it bring chaos, migration, and suffering? These are the questions shaping Iran's destiny. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay aware, and keep your voice strong. Because the story of Iran's water crisis is not just about one country, it's about the future of every nation facing the rising heat of climate change. Make sure to subscribe for more deep investigative stories like this. And I'll see you in the next video.